If you've ever opened a spreadsheet in Excel and thought, I have no idea how to do this, that feeling is basically over. This is a complete beginner's guide to using Claude in Excel. By the end of this video, you'll know 5 things that Claude can do in Excel, and you'll be able to apply it to your own work without writing a single formula. I'm Timothy. I work at a Fortune 500 company, and I've been working inside Excel for 5 years, so Claude has genuinely been useful to me here. For this guide, I have put together an Excel file, and in this Excel file, we have 5 different demonstrations. Each of these demos will get to see different ways to use Claude within Excel. I figured the best way to show you guys was to actually use it on a real file. Also, I have made this file available to download for you guys. All you need to do is click the link down below in the description. Once you click that link, you'll land on this page, and all you need to do is click on this file here. It's called Practice File, and you'll see it under Resources. Let's get set up. There are only 2 things that you need to get set up. The first one is you need access to Microsoft Excel, if that wasn't obvious. And the second thing that you need to get set up is a paid Claude plan. Any of the plans work as long as it's paid, so you can just use the $20 a month subscription. Once you have access to Microsoft Excel, and once you have a paid Claude plan, now we're ready to actually dive into installing Claude into Excel. To install Claude in Excel, all you need to do is start from the Home tab here. And if you expand this tab, you can scroll on over to the very right and you'll see add-ins here. Hit this button and then type in Claude. When you type in Claude, you'll see 2 different options. Choose the second one. This one specifically says Claude by Anthropic for Excel. I already have it added. So for you, just hit the add button and then you're going to have to sign in to your Claude account and go through a few questions. After you finish those questions and signed into your Claude account, you will have this Claude icon here like I do. You'll know you successfully installed Claude in Excel if you see this Claude icon here. All you need to do is click it, and then you'll see this chat window with Claude open up on the very right. Now that we have setup out of the way, let's dive into how we can actually use Claude in Excel. And some of these things will actually save you some time. So let's take a look. Starting with demo 1, here is the scenario that we're working with. Imagine you work at a company and the analyst that built the model that we're looking at here left that company a few weeks ago. Because of the way life works, you are now stuck overseeing this model and the reporting for it. Fun, I know. You have until this upcoming Friday to figure out how this model works so that you can review it in the meeting with leadership on how everything for the regions are doing from a sales perspective. The awesome thing is that the person who built this model only left very, very, very minimal documentation as to how he built this and what it's for. Normally, before Claude, if you encounter this scenario, you would have to spend probably a week, if not 2, trying to figure out all of the different formulas and trying to see how this model was built and what is the purpose behind it. But with Claude, one thing that is really cool is it can analyze a specific set of tabs or an entire file and tell you all of that information. So, what we're going to do is we are going to hit the Claude icon here. And what I've done is provide everyone the prompts that we can use for this exercise. Now, let's ask Claude what the heck this model does. All we need to do is take this prompt here that I have left for you guys and hit enter. Here's the prompt. Focus only on the first 3 tabs. So demo 1, give me a plain English summary of what this model does and how the 3 tabs connect. Claude just finished and it gave us a complete overview of what this model does. It looks like from a high level, this is a regional sales forecasting model. It projects 1 year, so 4 quarters of revenue, cost of goods, and gross profit across 4 regions, then rolls it up into a fiscal year 26 plan. And if you're interested, you can go into the actual details of how the three tabs are calculated. What is helpful here is a couple of things. The general overview is great. And then once you have a high level overview, the detailed pieces of each tab are really helpful to understand how the actual formulas in the different tabs are working. And then after that, Claude puts it all together and gives you a summary of how they connect. The way that that's structured is actually great because that is the best way to try and understand something that you are not familiar with. Now that we have a decent understanding of what this model even does, let's look at this second prompt and we're going to move to the summary tab of this demo. Walk me through exactly how total revenue on this summary tab is calculated and cite the cells it depends on. That was really fast. And Claude gave us a rundown of how the revenue tab, Claude gave us a rundown of how that cell is specifically calculated. And then from there, it gave us details into every step of that calculation. The amazing thing here is if we take a look at this specific cell, we can tell that the formula is just the sum of the four regions here. So that's pretty straightforward. Why did we even need Claude's help to help us understand how it was calculated? Well, if you think about it, each of these cells are calculated using a formula. So not only do we have to track how this figure is being calculated, but we have to track how each of these figures are being calculated. And these are tied to the inputs and calculation tabs. This is just a simple example, but if you think about a larger and more complex model, this is where asking Claude how something is calculated and seeing the full chain of that calculation is super helpful. So, what's amazing here is specifically in this section under full chain, we get to see that sequence of events of how that specific formula is calculated from beginning to end. So, to summarize two of the specific points that we talked about in this demo, number one, we were able to ask Claude how this model works. And if you think about why that's helpful, if you ever inherit or encounter a sheet or Excel file where you have no idea how it was built, asking Claude that question is really, really helpful. The second is at a high level, Claude can help us understand what a sheet does and what it's for. But you can also use Claude at the more minute and finer level if you have a specific question about a complicated cell. Now, let's move on to demo two. In demo two, we also have a scenario, and then we're going to look at how Claude can help us based on the scenario that we have. We just started a new job and we inherited this messy Excel file. Your boss wants it cleaned up and organized by the end of the day. So naturally, you get stuck with this fun job. What's interesting is that the amount of time that it would take for you to organize this messy Excel file would honestly depend on how comfortable you were using Excel. If you were a beginner in Excel, I would say this honestly can take you a good 1 to 2 hours to clean up. So if you were more seasoned, then honestly, this could probably take you 15 or 30 minutes because you understand how to write the formulas to organize everything that we have here. Like the first demo, what we're going to do is we're going to start with this first prompt here that says, look at this messy export and list every data quality issue you find. Don't change anything yet. We're going to come back here to Claude, and in the top right-hand corner, we're just going to hit new chat, and I'm going to paste in this prompt. What we're asking Claude to do here is to highlight and point out all of the issues that it sees with this file before it makes any changes, because I recommend doing this first so that you can understand the kind of layout and feel of the document before you have Claude actually do anything. Now, Claude has finished and it gave us a complete breakdown of all of the issues within this file. There are issues with the column that have to do with pricing. It looks like there are issues when it comes to certain cells having extra spaces. And if you look through the list, there are actually quite a few issues. Now, What can we do from here? Well, if you remember what I said at the beginning of the video, we're going to work in Excel and not write any formulas. And that is thanks to Claude. Now that we have the list from Claude about all of the issues with this tab in Excel, what we're going to do is actually not have Claude correct things yet because I want to show you guys something. This is a topic that I've been really interested in lately, which is how to make information easier to digest. So you might be asking, Timothy, what the heck do you mean by that? You'll see. If you look at all of the issues that Claude has laid out for us, this is great. We can read through it and then reference back to the tab and see what Claude is talking about. But what if there was a way to actually make it easier for us to understand what the issues are that Claude pointed out? That's what this second prompt is going to do. And you might be saying, Timothy, I still have no idea what you're saying. You're going to see in about 15 seconds what I mean. I just entered a prompt and I asked Claude, the possible areas of improvement you pointed out? Can you annotate the sheets to highlight or point those areas out? What Claude is going to do is actually go through and annotate this tab so that it's easier for us to understand what are the issues with it. And if you see with what's happening on the screen now, it is going through that exercise. And I don't know about you guys, but looking at it this way is so much easier for me to understand what and where the issues are than having to go through and read this wall of text and then reference the tab and go back to this wall of text and see what the connection is. This honestly has been such a hack for me. And I'm not even talking about this for Excel using Claude. I'm just talking about using Claude or ChatGPT in general to think about ways that I can make information easier to digest. This is just a little tip to improve your quality of life when working with these models. Hopefully that was helpful. You can completely skip this tip if you want, and we could have went straight into prompt number 3, which is to clean the data. But for me, I like having this step because it's easier for me to see what the issues are and what we're going to be doing. Now that Claude has finished actually annotating that, we can move into prompt number 3, which is asking Claude to clean up this document with all of the recommendations that it made for us. What we're going to see is Claude is going to go through all of the data quality issues, and then it's going to implement fixes, which is going to be pretty amazing. I'm going to pause the video and have Claude run. Once it's finished, I'll start it back up so that we can see and review the changes that it made. Claude has finished cleaning up that tab, so let's review some of the changes that it made. It looks like it made changes to the companies, the regions, pretty much all of the different columns, and it specifically worked on the data quality issues that it recapped for us here. What's great too, that I liked what it did, is it created a completely new tab of the cleaned data. That way we always have the old data to reference. And pretty much if this were a real project, we can just hide this sheet so that we'll have that as reference for the cleaned data tab. Now, what's really interesting here is Claude only made changes that it was sure of. And so you might be asking, Timothy, what do you mean by that? Well, if you notice here on cell F23, it left us a note which says there's a missing quantity for this specific order ID. So this was left blank because it didn't have any data for it to logically put into here. If you think about why this is helpful, it's because Claude didn't hallucinate an answer or hallucinate a figure just to satisfy us and insert something here so that it could look complete. That is so huge because using ChatGPT or Claude as a chatbot and it hallucinating is one thing, but if it literally hallucinates something in an Excel document we're working in, those are actual figures and numbers that we're working with. And if we get something wrong here, that can have crazy downstream effects, especially if you work at a big company or you own a small business. That could really mess things up for you. So I really liked that point of what Claude did. So that is the end of demo 2. So for a quick recap, what we did was we took a messy tab that we inherited, and then we analyzed it with Claude to understand what the data quality issues were. And then we use Claude to annotate those data issues so that we could easier understand where the issues were. And then final step was to use Claude to actually clean the sheet so that it looked so much better and didn't have those data quality issues that it pointed out before. And that clean data set is what we have here. Let's move on to demo 3. As always, we want to start a new chat since we are working on a new demo. So I'm just going to click on new chat here. Let's review the scenario for what we're working on. The quarterly numbers are due in an hour, and this tab is literally held together by hope. Everything on it is broken on purpose, so our job is to find each problem, explain the root cause, and fix what can be fixed. What's cool here is we have a few different demonstrations or exercises. We have about 5 total. So what we're going to do, and like we've been doing up until this point, is not have Claude do anything yet, because the first step we want to take is always understand what the issues are so that we can then make sure that Claude implements the right changes. I'm going to take this first prompt here and enter that into Claude. One thing, if you'll notice, is I said highlight them with comments. You don't have to do that on your end, but I personally really like that. If we think about what we did in demo 2, it makes it so much easier to work with and understand where the actual issues are. Claude came back and given us a detailed overlook into what is wrong with each one of these sections. What I'm going to do now is take the second prompt and just ask Claude to fix them. Claude is now going to go in and fix the formula errors that we're seeing, and it's going to come back and ask us a few questions. So, for example, here it asks C8 holds TBD. I need a real unit price for the monitor arm to fix the errors. What should it be? I'm just going to say leave as is. Next, deal count is 0, causing the divide by 0 error. I'm going to say guard with if error. Claude has now fixed what can be fixed. And I want to really, really emphasize that specific point of what I just said. Fix what can be fixed. So some of these issues were actually genuine, and the formula error was coming back because something was not calculated properly. But if we think about the error that we were seeing here, there was no unit price for the monitor arm. So of course, this line total came back with an error. So what Claude did was point out to us that a unit price is needed here for this formula to actually calculate properly. So there's nothing inherently wrong with the formula. It's because of what we have in it. But in the other instances, there were actual issues with the way that the formula was being calculated, and Claude went in and fixed those. So for us, there always will need to be a human in the loop because that isn't something Claude can just figure out and insert on its own. Now that Claude has fixed what it can fix for these first 4 sections, we're going to move to section 5, and we're just going to ask Claude, hey, I see this commission formula. Can you explain it to us in plain English? So we're going to take this prompt here and ask Claude. For this exercise, I also included this second part of the prompt, which is to check section 4, specifically this hard-coded total. But actually, Claude fixed this specific issue in the first run, so we don't have to worry about it. So if you see this second part of the prompt here, that's why. So just know Claude already fixed it, so we don't have to worry about it. Claude came back and gave us an explanation of the commission formula in plain English. So let's take a quick look. It looks like for any rep that sells more than 100 units and is in the West region, they get a 15% commission. Otherwise, a 10% commission if they sold more than 60 units or are in the East region. And for the other 2 tiers, it looks like there's a 5% commission if they sold more than 25 units. And if they sold nothing, then they have a 0% commission. Having that commission formula explained in plain English is so much more helpful to understand how this formula is actually derived than trying to go in and decipher this Excel formula, especially if you don't have Excel experience. It would make no sense. That is the end of demo 3. To recap, we talked about how Claude can go in and diagnose errors that you're getting in Excel. From there, it can actually fix what it can fix. For anything it can't, it flags it to us that it needs our involvement. Now, let's move on to demo 4 of this video. As always, make sure you are using a new chat. Here's the scenario that we're working with. Thankfully, we actually have clean data, so that's the good news. It looks like what we have in front of us is 6 months of sales data. And our manager has tasked us with finding the story and the insights from this data so it can be used in Monday's meeting. We're going to see if Claude can pull out the insights from all of this data that we have in front of us and see what story that data actually tells. For the first prompt, we are going to use this one here. And we're just going to ask Claude, looking at this data, what trends stand out? Give me the top three insights a sales manager would care about and tell me which cells actually back them up. Claude is going to do its analysis. And once it's finished, we're going to see the different insights that it came up with. So let's see what those are in a second. Claude has finished generating those three insights. So let's take a quick look and then we'll move on to the next prompt of this demo. First one, it looks like the Ergo chair caught fire in May. So that's what's driving the whole quarter's growth. So that's amazing. The second is that the monitor arm is the one product that is actually trending backwards. So a price hike seems to be the reason why. Ooh, so that one is fascinating. The third one, the West is quietly the breakout region while the South has stalled. Those are some pretty good insights. What I would recommend is looking at these insights and then making sure you agree that that's the story that's being told from this data, because we never just want to rely on Claude or ChatGPT to tell these things for us. Because this whole idea of drawing insights from something, that is probably where using your brain is the most important. So, the one disclaimer I'm going to say is in this instance, make sure you don't completely rely on AI. We're going to see if Claude can create us some nice graphs so our manager can use that in the upcoming Monday meeting. To do that, I'm going to copy and paste this prompt here. Create a clean labeled bar chart of total revenue by region and a summary table of revenue by product by month on a new tab. After I gave that prompt to Claude, it's asking us a question. Claude wants to create a new tab. I'm going to say allow once. So it looks like what Claude is doing is it is leaving this data as is, and then it's going to create a completely new tab that has all of the charts and visualizations on it. I'm going to give this a second to run. Once it's finished, let's take a look at what it generated. Claude has finished generating those charts. So let's take a look. It created a new tab down here. So D4 analysis. And this is what it came up with. It looks like it's inserted the charts over the header here. So we're just going to move that over a little bit. And this is pretty much exactly what we just asked for. After we actually have the insights that that story gives us, we then need to turn that into a way that is digestible for our boss or leadership in a meeting. And that is just what we had Claude do, amazingly enough. That is the end of demo 4. So let's do a quick recap of what we talked about in regards to using Claude in Excel. Up until this point, we have been using Claude to do a lot of the busy work for us. Clean this data set, fix this formula. In demo 4, this was the first time we used Claude to actually help us draw insights from a data set that we had in front of us. Then, those insights, we asked Claude to turn them into a labeled bar chart so that we can then present that visualization to our leadership or our boss in an upcoming meeting that we have. Now, let's move into the last and final demo of this video. Let's jump in. For demo 5, I'm going to start a new chat. And you might be asking, Timothy, what the heck is this? We just have a blank page in front of us. Well, that's on purpose. Up until this point, we have been working off of synthetic data that I provided. But now, what I want everyone to have as a takeaway is you can literally build anything in Excel that you want. And all you need to do is just use conversational language to do it. So, what we're going to do for this demo is build a monthly personal budget tracker. I'm going to take this prompt and insert it into Claude, and let's see what it creates for us. Claude then is going to create this budget tracker for us. It's going to track our income and expenses. It's going to give us a summary with totals and percent of income and conditional formatting that flags any category over budget. It looks like it gave us a question for something that it needs permission for. Claude wants to clear scenario notes. I'm going to say allow once. So it's just removing that scenario notes that I had up here, and then it's going to insert the tracker. I'm going to give Claude a second to work. So let's see what it does. Claude has finished building us that monthly personal budget tracker. And let's take a look. We have 3 sections. income, expenses, and a summary tab. And also, what I really like is it highlighted anything that we were actually over budget with in red. So, again, like I've been reiterating, it's just so much easier to digest this information with certain little tweaks that you can make. And having these red highlights really help. Now that we have this monthly personal budget tracker, we're going to say below the tracker, can you add a table that shows a 12-month savings projection? I'm going to copy and paste this prompt and let's see what it comes up with. While this is running, what I want to really emphasize to everyone is I'm just using conversational language and I'm creating a monthly personal budget tracker that works and fits me. But for you, yours could look completely different. And all you need to do to build it is just ask Claude what you want. That's why I think this is so amazing because we are in this era where we can build specific solutions that fit us. And that helps so much. We now have a 12-month savings projection to see if we're actually on track with money that we're saving. That is the end of demo 5. For a quick recap, we took a completely blank tab in Excel and we asked Claude to create us a monthly personal budget tracker. And that was all completely from scratch. We tweaked it by adding a 12-month savings projection because that is what I wanted to do for my use case. But for you, that could look completely different. The most important takeaway from this demo is that you can build anything that you want in Claude. All you have to do is ask it. Just as a reminder, I do have a Claude Cowork community that I started. So if you're interested in Claude or Claude Cowork, I would love to see you in there.